All right, get ready to throw on your metaphorical boxing gloves because we're taking a deep dive into Fight Club.
Mm.
You've sent us a fascinating article exploring the spiritual crisis at the heart of this movie, and we're going to unpack those deeper layers. Even if you've seen the film a dozen times, get ready for some serious aha
It
moments.
really is amazing how a film that's outwardly about chaos and rebellion can also be a map of internal struggle.
It's true, and the article really digs into that. Like, remember how the narrator is obsessed with his IKEA furniture at the beginning? It's almost comical, but the article points out that it's so much more than just a commentary on consumerism.
Right, it speaks to a deeper emptiness so many of us feel in a world obsessed with material things. The narrator's got the job, the apartment, he's checking all the boxes, but he's utterly miserable.
He even says at one point, I was hoping for a different outcome. Like, he followed the rules, but it got him nowhere, at least emotionally. And that insomnia that plagues him. The article suggests it's a symptom of a soul desperately seeking meaning.
It's almost as if his insomnia is a physical manifestation of this deeper spiritual crisis. The article even connects this to the Buddhist idea of dukkha. Have you ever heard of that?
I have, but to be honest, I could use a refresher.
Well, dukkha is often translated as suffering, but
Mhm.
it's more nuanced than that. It refers to that deep sense of unease that comes from chasing things that can't bring lasting fulfillment. Think about a time you really, really wanted something. Maybe it was a promotion or a new car, and you thought, once I have that, I'll be happy.
Oh, totally. Like, we convince ourselves that thing is the key to happiness.
Exactly. But then you get the thing, and the happiness is fleeting. That's dukkha, in action, the suffering caused by clinging to illusions, instead of looking inward for true contentment.
Wow. When you put it that way, it's like the narrator is a walking, talking example of dukkha, right?
Mm.
He's surrounded by all the stuff he's been told will make him happy, but he's completely lost.
And that's where Tyler Durden explodes onto the scene.
Wow.
Now, the article makes this really interesting argument about Tyler, that he isn't just the narrator's cool alter ego.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What else does the article say about Tyler? What's their take on his character?
Well, they suggest Tyler represents the narrator's shadow self, a term coined by a psychologist, Carl Jung.
Oh, okay, I've heard that term before, but honestly, I'm a little fuzzy on what it actually means.
Basically, your shadow self is the part of you that contains all the instincts and desires society deems unacceptable. It's the wild, untamed part of your personality you're taught to keep hidden.
So, like all those times you wanted to tell someone to shove it, but bit your tongue instead.
Exactly. Or that time you had the urge to quit your job and run off to Bali, but instead you just updated your resume quietly. We all have those urges, those shadow parts, but we're often afraid to even acknowledge them, let alone express them.
And the article is saying Tyler is like a physical embodiment of the narrator's repressed shadow self.
Precisely. Tyler is all about rejecting societal expectations and embracing primal instincts. He's magnetic and dangerous because he embodies the parts of ourselves we're often too afraid to even look at.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. He's like that voice whispering in the narrator's ear, urging him to break free from his mundane, consumer-driven existence. But here's the thing, and the article points this out too. Tyler's methods, while initially seeming liberating, actually lead to more chaos and destruction.
That's a good point.
Hmm.
The article uses Tyler's trajectory as a cautionary tale about what can happen when we blindly follow those raw shadow impulses without any self-awareness. True spiritual growth isn't about just letting your inner Tyler Durden run wild.
Yeah, it's not just about unleashing your shadow self on unsuspecting IKEA furniture. There's got to be more to it than that.
Right. It's about finding a healthy way to integrate those shadow parts. It's about acknowledging those suppressed desires and urges and finding a way to channel their energy in a way that's constructive, not destructive.
That's a good point. And speaking of destructive urges, let's talk about those brutal fight scenes. I mean, they're pretty hard to forget. But the article argues they're not just there for shock value. They symbolize something deeper, right?
Absolutely. Those fight scenes are like visceral representations of the internal battles we all face. They're about that struggle between who we think we should be and who we truly are.
Okay, I like that. So it's not just about dudes beating each other up. It's about that internal conflict, that feeling of being torn between different versions of yourself.
Exactly. Think about a time you knew you should be doing something responsible, maybe finishing a work project or paying your bills, but all you wanted to do was chuck it all and follow some crazy whim.
Oh, tell me you haven't been there. Like that time I was supposed to be writing a podcast script and instead spent 3 hours perfecting my sourdough bread recipe.
See? We've all got those competing voices in our heads. And in a way, that internal tug of war is its own kind of fight club.
It's like everyone has an inner Tyler Durden whispering in their ear, let's blow it all up. But maybe the real challenge is figuring out what needs to be dismantled in your life and what deserves to be nurtured.
Exactly. And that brings us to one of the most famous lines from the movie. The things you own end up owning you.
Oh man, that line is everywhere. I've even seen it on those motivational quote posters with the sunset backgrounds.
Right. But cheesy posters aside, this line really gets to the heart of what the article's talking about. It's about so much more than just decluttering your apartment.
So it's not just about chucking your IKEA catalog in the recycling bin. What's the deeper meaning there? It's like the movie is saying, hey, take a look at the things you're clinging to. Are they really bringing you joy or are they just weighing you down?
It's a call to examine our attachments to material possessions, to ideas, even to versions of ourselves that we've outgrown. The article connects this back to the spiritual idea of detachment, which again isn't about literally owning nothing. It's about freeing yourself from the grip these things can have on your identity and your
It
happiness.
reminds me of that scene where Tyler forces the narrator to confront his attachment to his apartment and all the stuff he's accumulated.
Exactly. That scene where Tyler blows up the narrator's apartment. The article argues it's a powerful metaphor for spiritual detachment taken to the extreme. It's like Tyler saying, if you define yourself by these things, then let's see what happens when they're gone.
It's interesting because it's not like the narrator even loves his apartment. He's pretty indifferent to it, just like everything else in his pre-Tyler life.
And that's the point, right? He's clinging to these things out of habit, out of a fear of the unknown. But by letting go, even if it's forced upon him, it opens up the possibility for something new, something more authentic.
So it's like the movie is giving us permission to let go of the things or even the ideas that are no longer serving us, to create space for something more meaningful.
Exactly. And this leads us to the film's ending, which the article interprets in a really interesting way. As you know, the narrator realizes that Tyler isn't real, that he's a figment of the narrator's own psyche.
Right, Tyler is basically a part of him, not a separate person. And everyone listening has probably already figured that out. But for the sake of this deep dive, what's the article's take on the deeper meaning there?
The article argues that the ending with the narrator finally confronting and accepting this truth about Tyler represents a profound step in his spiritual journey. It's about recognizing and integrating those shadow aspects of ourselves, not trying to destroy them or pretend they don't exist.
So it's not about literally having a split personality, but more about recognizing those hidden parts of ourselves, our own inner Tyler Durdens, and figuring out how to live in harmony with them.
Precisely. And that's where true freedom lies, according to the article. Not in external chaos or rebellion, but in conquering those inner demons, integrating them into a whole authentic self.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. So when the narrator rejects Tyler, he's essentially rejecting that destructive path to freedom and choosing a different way.
Exactly. The film seems to be saying that true liberation comes from self-awareness, from accepting those shadow parts instead of letting them control us. It's about finding a balance, not just blindly following our destructive impulses.
Which makes that final scene with the buildings collapsing as the narrator and Marla Singer stand together all the more powerful. It's like the old world is literally crumbling around them, but the narrator has found some inner peace.
It's a potent image of transformation. The article doesn't offer easy answers, but it leaves you with a sense that even amidst chaos, there's potential for personal growth and maybe even hope. It's like the old way of doing things has to fall apart to make way for something new.
Man, who knew a movie about underground fight clubs could be so existentially deep? This article has given me a whole new perspective on the film's message about consumerism, identity, and finding your own path.
It's amazing how art can spark these kinds of reflections, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, to everyone listening, here's a thought to chew on. Is there a little Tyler Durden lurking inside all of us? And if so, how can we confront those shadow selves and channel their energy in a way that's constructive, not destructive? Something to ponder maybe next time you're flipping through that IKEA catalog.
Now that's a question worth exploring.
It really is. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into Fight Club. Thanks for joining us on this journey of self-discovery, and be sure to tune in next time when we'll unpack another fascinating topic you never knew you needed to explore.